I would say that there is a courage here among the leadership and among the congregation. I would say that there is.
Tell me more about courage.
Well, we took on a large loan for a bank building, and we have a huge expansion project that's full of ideas that has there's great scope in the vision, and that took some courage to step out into that. And the congregation did that in the absence of a full-time rector. Started that process while Father Jim was retiring, and while we were having two different interims here, and then in my early months here as the rector, we closed on that purchase and on that loan, and the vision now has changed since Mrs. Flores has become the head of school and I've been the rector here, and the vision has gotten more grand, and people have bought into that, and I think that takes some courage to set forth on an endeavor like this. The greatest challenge, I think, right now, well, there are a couple of them. We're coming out of a pandemic, and what the pandemic, I think, really did in a couple of ways is there was some pruning that happened, and by that I mean especially around church attendance. Our attendance numbers are not what they were prior to COVID. We're at about 75%, 80% on a really good Sunday, but we're averaging between 70-75% of our attendance numbers. So that's one of the challenges we're facing, is how do we grow again, or even how do we pull back in some of the folks that were once here and are not anymore, and that didn't leave for any other reason than just they got out of the routine of coming to church. And so I think that's one of the challenges. Another one is like I said, this grand vision that we have. We've got a lot of money that we're trying to raise, and so in order to kind of achieve that vision, it's probably going to take a long time to finish that project. And I think one of the challenges is not to push too hard to keep the momentum going all the way through for all these years it's going to take, but also not to let the momentum just die and then lay fallow for a long time. And so finding that balance between rest and momentum, I think is going to be a challenge as well.
My dad's name was Richard Buell, and my mom's name was Helen.
And they were some of the earliest.
They were there. Mother was there very early on, and she was the Episcopalian, and then my dad joined the Episcopal Church. All of my children were baptized there, confirmed there, and Brandon and Flo were married there, and Ashley was married there, and so it's been a staple in my life for well over probably 72 years or so. Mother taught 3rd grade with Toddy Tatum was the principal then, and she taught under Dottie, and that was my really first introduction to the school. When I started teaching there, I was teaching with Mary Ashley and Charlene Nichols, who was there at that time. She was the assistant. And I taught 4-year-olds and absolutely loved that. That was a lot of. It's always maintained that same loving, warm atmosphere that it started out with, and I don't think that'll ever change. It's just built in, part and parcel with the parish and with the school. I love what I see now with Father Rod. I think he's doing such a magnificent job of incorporating the different age groups. And there's something for everybody if you look. And for a while, I think it just didn't seem like we were doing enough change. But I'm really encouraged now, and I can't believe how well we did during COVID. I think better than most churches even thought of doing, and that was because of the foresight of the vestry and Rod. Being able to do church in the parking lot, people sitting in their cars or wherever, whatever we could do, we did. And I think it's put St. John's at the forefront of many churches in the diocese.
Several of the leaders at Trinity Far felt so strongly about the need of a church in McAllen that they pretty well volunteered to come over and become a part of it. And so the bishop, I'm sure, virtually insisted on that. And it turned out that we must have drawn some of the strongest people in Trinity Far, because St. John's McAllen started off with a bang. I suppose these people were in their mid-60s. They seemed old to me at the time. This first building was very much the church for several years beyond when I arrived with my wife. And we felt awfully good about coming into a congregation like that. It was small, lively, eager. They were very forthcoming to young people like us, and Parish Hall, which, as you know, is quite new relative to the rest of the campus. Dick Moore designed and built it, and I would be hard pressed now to name the year, but it hasn't been long. I'm very proud of the design and the facilities that we have. One of the things that happened back in those early days that was just a really lucky break, an office building that was next door to us on the north simply became available when the businessman that owned it thought well of St. John's, and he was in the mood to sell, and we got first crack at it, and thank goodness we did, because it fits so well as our present office and so on and so on, and mostly the day school still occupies it. So that was a real stroke of luck.
Dottie Tatum was a teacher in one of the McAllen schools, and St. John's got her to come be their first grade teacher.
Dottie Tatum so special?
Oh, just how excellent she was. She was a really good person to turn your child over to. You didn't feel like you were losing that little kid to something. The priest that was here asked for a certain number of people to go over and be planted to make another church in Mission.
Right.
And I lived in Mission at that time, so I volunteered and went over there and was there for several years when Rod became the priest over there. So then we sold the house that I live in, and I moved over here where I am now. And it was easier to go back to St. John's than it was to go back to the church in Mission. So I moved there, and then by gum, there came Father Rod.
Okay.
I like the things that he's done.
Father Rod.
That he makes it I think it makes it more meaningful. Different priests had different ideas about where the altar itself should be, whether the priest should stand behind it to read, or the way we had it, the priest had to turn his back on the people all the time, and they've made it so that he's facing them. Marge Hart, she's the one that was forever there. She knew everything. She ran the church. I think lots of times secretaries do run be able to take care of everything. At least in the school system, you make friends with the janitor and the secretary, and you'll get along just fine teaching. And we had a great section in the past too.
Met any of the Chidlow family, but we lived, our backyard was backed up to their backyard, and they gave a whole acre of land to St. John's to build the church, and we built the parish hall first. And it was designed for no air conditioning. All the windows were open on the south side so that we could get the Gulf breeze. And that building was built, the old parish hall was built first. One of the first, Clyde, had been elected. She ran for the vestry, and she didn't win the election, but she had the next number of votes. So she was on the vestry for a year. And then Sue Etchison was on the vestry, and I think I was maybe the third one. I came later. And of course, I had to be clerk. With all the things that are crazy in this world today, and you wonder where we're all going and doing, and how things are going to work out in politics and so forth that's happening to us. I can say that St. John's has more feeling today, more interest, more serious thought than it did when the people started the mission. The fact that they started the mission helped us create who we are today. But back in the 60s, the church did not have the diversity that it does today. And it did not have the Christian ed for adults, and it did not have a unity of community like it does today. St. John's has grown in faith, in service, and in heart.